This is Lon Winters with Graphic Elephants.
This is Jimmy Lamp.
This is Matt Vassallo with the RhinstoneWorld.com.
And you're listening to the Two Regular Guys podcast.
And you are listening to the Two Regular Guys podcast.
Hosted by...
My name is Terry Combs, RG, regular guy.
And Aaron Montgomery.
We're just regular guys having fun and trying to make a living in this really cool and exciting industry.
I think we all want to succeed 100% of the time.
Seek to understand before I try and make myself understood.
Bring a ton of great information.
Coming to you live from somewhere dark, dirty, and dank.
All right. Well, welcome into the show. It is Friday, August 12th, 2022. I'm Terry Combs, and you can find me at terrycombs.com.
And I'm Erich Montgomery, and you can find me over at oursuccessgroup.com. Terry, today we are going to bring in our intrepid, is that how you say it? Is that the right word? He's probably pissed off at me right now because I asked him to add something last minute, right? Let's change it up. Let's just change it up. So anyhow, we are going to have...
We had a minute to spare.
I know, we had a whole minute. So we are going to be bringing on shortly here our amazing producer, Erich Campbell. And Terry, you and the regulators are going to find this surprising, but we put together a show kind of last minute, and we said, oh, gosh, I hope we have enough. And it ended up being a two-parter. I don't know if you've heard of that before.
Yeah, it was bizarre. In fact, as I recall, we still had about 4/5 of the information that we didn't get to.
Yes.
So
well,
we may roll over again.
We may. This may be part two of a multi-part series, but part two about, these are skills that as business owners we need to have in our repertoire, but they might not specifically relate to being a decorator, right? It's not the digitizing. It's not the color separations. It's not how do I code a screen. It's not... the pressing of heat press type stuff. These are I don't know. I guess some people might call them soft skills, Terry.
Well, yeah. And it's when you're an entrepreneur, it's great that you are a great digitizer or a great graphic designer, but to run a business, especially if you have employees and to keep keep the payroll going, there are a lot of other things that you have to do in your business to make it successful. So,
yeah,
great idea on Eric's part when we said, our guest isn't going to be here. What's anybody got? Eric's like, I've been kicking something around.
Yeah, there you go. So and then we made the mistake of starting with pricing, and that was where it went downhill from there.
Down the rabbit hole.
Yeah. It was a great conversation. So go back a couple weeks and check that one out, the non-decorator skills part one. So today is going to be part two, and that's what we're talking about. But let's check in with some of our regulators, as we discussed here just a moment ago. Cindy King, good morning to you. And Chuck, good morning, gentlemen. Chuck, if I could ask you to please start using the quotes around gentlemen. Sorry, Terry, while you're drinking your coffee there.
You spit on my microphone.
Yes, exactly. Happy Friday to you, Christine, and Mr. David Gross. Good to see you, sir. Good morning. And Ramona says, giggle. We are sillies. Yes, we are going to have some fun as well today. So that's never a problem. And then Kim Johnson, happy Friday. Got some sunshine and some palm trees there. Beautiful day there in Phoenix. I'm sure only 120 degrees or so, Terry.
I think it's only going to be, it's only going to be 102 today. It's like spring.
Wow, do you need a jacket? All right. Barb checking in from beautiful north central Minnesota. Thank you for being here. Good morning to Michelle and Mo. Wow, here we go. We got James Ortolani. Haven't seen James in a little bit. Good to see you, James. Good morning from beautiful downtown Pittsburgh, Kansas. So home of what's the
Pittsburgh Gorillas?
Yes, thank you. There you go.
It's the only college team in America with the name Gorillas, and a fine college football team it is. They're
all right. There we go.
Many-time champions. So,
all right. So we got Yusta checking in. Good morning. Hello. Good evening, probably for Yusta. Rena. Good morning, and Frank. Good afternoon. He's over there in the UK. Frank, good to see you. And Wendy says, morning, playing the Can We Find the Product game while listening. So the intrepid search for blanks. One of these days, those distributors are going to figure out how to get this under control. So hopefully.
It is the most popular online game right now among garment, well, any kind of business. So.
It is definitely the most popular, unpopular game out there. So, all right. Well, Terry, we do have a little bit of news items that we wanted to share with everybody here before we get started, before we get Erich in here. So would you like to start us off, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Printing United Alliance, which is our trade association now. It used to be SGIA, used to be SPAI, used to be, Printing United Alliance. They've announced the new Apparel Decoration Summit, which I think it sounds pretty interesting. Following the success of the highly engaged summit models produced by Printing United Alliance, including the Inkjet Summit, Wide Format Summit, and Digital Packaging Summit, the Apparel Decoration Summit is designed for senior managers and executives in the decorated apparel space looking to understand how current and future printing technologies, substrate options, market trends, and data management solutions will impact their businesses and investment decisions. This summit will provide strategic level insights into what industry leaders must do to grow, improve, and optimize their businesses. This event will be next year, June 12th through 14th, 2023 at the Loews Vanderbilt Hotel in Nashville, Tennessee. And if you'd like to sign up or get more information about the Apparel Decoration Summit, go to apparellist.com/summit. And there's the shortened version there on the screen. If you're a podcast listener, that's apparellist.com/summit.
Awesome. Check that out. It looks like that's going to be a pretty cool event. So we'll have to learn more. They hit us with that yesterday, and I haven't had a chance to talk to Josh over there yet. But it sounds like they're pretty excited about that, Terry. So
I will be expecting the two regular guys invite to that event in Nashville. Definitely. Oh, baby.
Yeah, there you go. Nash Vegas, baby. All right. All right. News item from me. And this is Erich. Thank you for bringing this to the table here. Fruit of the Loom has achieved a 40% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. So Fruit of the Loom announced this reduction of gas emissions at its operations, putting the company on track to achieve its goal of reducing scope 1 and 2 emissions by 50% by 2030. This goal was announced in 2021 as part of its science-based target approved by the Science-Based Target Initiatives to keep a rise in temperature below 1.5 degrees Celsius. And by 2030, this achievement and more can be found in the 2021 Sustainability Report. Let me hit a couple of other key highlights of this real quick here. And all Fruit of the Loom owned operations are now zero waste facilities. 64% of the company's global electricity was renewable through a mix of solar and biomass renewables and the purchase of renewable energy credits. 87% of the cotton used comes from sustainable sources in the U.S., and the company is on track to reach its goal of 100% sustainably sourced cotton by 2025. Fruit of the Loom mapped 18% of its Tier 1 supply chain, exceeding its annual phasing goal by 23%. So if you want to get more information on this, you can head over to graphicspro.com, and there's the shortened version down in the bottom right-hand or left-hand side of the screen, and then up in the top right, you can also scan that QR code if you are listening or watching the live version up there. Scan that to go directly there. So it's over at graphics-pro, and then you'll hit the news, and you can go from there. So congrats to Fruit of the Loom for working towards a pretty cool initiative there, Terry.
I think that's pretty awesome, and thanks to Erich for putting that together real quick as we were starting the show.
He's like, I don't know if we've got time. We're like, Erich, you've got time.
We'll just talk slow while you type.
Yeah, that's right. All right. Well, James did say go Gorillas, 4-time national D2 football champs. So there you go.
It's a heck of a program down there, just about an hour and a half south of Kansas City. So.
There you go. Awesome. Okay, Terry. So we've been getting dad jokes from our listeners, from our regulators, and we appreciate that. So keep those coming. But also, we want the 5 things first and foremost. So I don't want you to think that you can get off the hook by sending in just a dad joke. All right, you got to send a 5 things too. But anyways, go ahead, Terry. Do you have a 5 or a dad joke?
I do. This is from our regulator Beth Bendig. Now, when we get dad jokes, there's a range. Over here, it's that's a groaner. And over here, that's hilarious, but we can't do that on the air.
Yes.
This one's in the middle.
Okay, all right.
So here it is from Beth. Okay, there are 3 moles in a tunnel. The first one says, I smell sugar. The second one says, I smell cinnamon. The third one says, I smell molasses.
Let that sink in for a second, everybody. I smell molasses.
and see, Eric couldn't even bring himself to give it the explanation.
Yeah. He says, you don't need me to explain this one.
Beth, I think that was hilarious. I laughed out loud, literally, when I read it.
That is a good one. And Kim Johnson, some face palm action there. So yes, it definitely is face palm worthy, but it is hilarious. So that's what it's all about, people. That's what dad jokes are. Awesome.
All right, Aaron, before we jump in, we want to thank everybody for checking out the Two Regular Guys podcast. We are always looking for new guests. So if you or anyone you know would like to join us, go to calendly.com/2, the number 2, Regular Guys, and share your show ideas. If you are listening to the podcast version of the show, please share with all your friends so they can become regulators too. We would appreciate you giving us a review. This is really important to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Amazon Podcast, or wherever you do your podcast listening. We are everywhere. And if you're watching us live right now, especially today, please join in with your comments and questions.
Yeah, definitely. And podcast listeners, if you listen live, do you also subscribe to the podcast? You can do that over at tworegularguys.com, and that way, you miss one or you want to go back, there was something in there, you want to listen while you're printing or something like that. We hear a lot of that. So curious what you live listeners are you also podcast subscribers to regularguys.com. So, all right, Terry. Well, let's, we've got to get Eric in here. Otherwise we will have a 4-part series and never get part 2 done. But let's hear a quick word this Saturday. In fact, tomorrow at 3:00, I've got an Unlock Your Potential workshop coming up, and I want to make sure everybody's aware of it. I think this is a really cool opportunity. So if we could play that commercial real quick, Eric.
Hi, I'm Kylene.
And I'm Aaron from our Success Group.
We understand that feeling of knowing something is holding you back.
Are you watching others succeed and wondering what they have that you don't? There's a secret locked away inside of each of us, yet we never think about fixing it because it has to be something external from ourselves. It is the limiting belief that everyone wants to just push aside and try to hustle and grind harder to get there. But the truth is, those limiting beliefs are keeping you from asking for help or doing the action needed to move your business forward.
The sooner you can identify what's holding you back, the sooner you will start achieving your goals. Head on over to oursuccessgroup.com/unlock and click the turquoise button, Learn the Magic to Unlock Your Potential. We hope you make this investment in yourself and unlock your potential so you can find more meaning and success in your life.
Okay. Well, definitely check that out. Again, happening tomorrow at 3:00 Central Time. And would love to have you join us. We've got a group of people already slated to join us, so it'll be a wonderful experience. And if you go to oursuccessgroup.com/unlock, you can register. We actually do it every month, so if Saturday afternoon is not right for you, we try to switch up the days and times. So there's got to be one in there for you. And for you guys that are tuned in here and listening, I'm going to give you a little discount that I wasn't planning on here, but if you'll use the code THANKFUL, that'll actually save 50% of the price. So it's not much of an investment to begin with. We feel this is so valuable that we want to get it out there, but we'll even knock another 50% off of that. So just use that code THANKFUL. Eric, you are amazing. Thank you, sir. Okay, well, speaking of Eric, Terry, let's get Mr. Amazing in here. Right. So I'm going to bring him in if you are ready, sir.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Okay.
Hey,
all right.
Hey, can I give you a warning?
Please.
Internet here in my part of town has been kind of sketchy the last couple of days. So if you lose me,
all right,
that's why.
We'll do our best. I think we can cover. So, All right. Well, Erich Campbell is an award-winning machine embroidery digitizer and designer, frequently contributing to embroidery industry resources, including hosting his weekly show, The Take-Up, a must-watch every Friday afternoon. Erich has done many jobs in the industry, from creating and managing e-commerce properties to social media and marketing to establishing and managing relationships between vendors and industry businesses. Erich is an evangelist for the craft, a stitch-obsessed embroidery believer, and firmly holds to consistent lifelong learning and the free exchange of techniques and experience through conversations with his fellow embroiderers. He's also the producer and a frequent contributor to this popular podcast, Two Regular Guys, where he lends his unique embroidery experience to the mix and makes it amazing. Welcome into the show, Mr. Erich Campbell. You have to push the button yourself.
Still on the clock. What the heck?
Yeah, exactly.
That's like saying it's open. Come on in.
Come on in.
That's too much lead up. Now I don't know if I can deliver on that.
Yeah,
I'm sure you can.
The bar is, yes, yeah, we know you can. All right, well, Terry, how do we want to get this started here?
Well, this is going to carry on from part one that we did. What was it, about a month ago? And we had 9 areas we were going to talk about. We did one. So that said, Erich, you want to catch people up? What were some of the chief takeaways from the last time we had this conversation?
I think without bringing pricing too far into it, I will literally try and cut some of that off because pricing becomes everything every time we talk about it. Yeah. I will say a lot of it was about values people hold for themselves and about how we react to things. I mean, a lot of it really ended up being about valuing yourself, as well as the core stuff like knowing your business, knowing your numbers, stuff like that. So I think there's something, because we were talking about soft skills, we kind of tried to bring it outside of just, the Excel spreadsheet territory, much as we must, we do love some of that stuff. We kind of went further about, what do people think about value? And then we got into, at the last moment, some stuff that I think we're kind of going to bridge into today, which is the curiosity we have to have as people who are in the business to learn and continue not only to grow in our businesses and in all of our skills, but kind of maintaining that curious beginner mindset with everything, which also kind of lets us off the hook to get where we need to go in all these processes. And then we started to get into communication. And I think that's the thing. I know personally, I think that all of the good things that have come out in my career that are perhaps beyond the norm, beyond what anybody else gets from what they're doing, these things are all surrounded around kind of communication, whether it's blogging early on in my career, whether it's education, as we all do at the trade shows, whether it's the podcasting, or honestly, just interactions with people. I think a lot of what made me successful in some of the things I've done, or at least things that have brought me success and honestly just made it more possible for me to do the things I've done in the industry and in business to get jobs, to secure clients, is really about focusing on both clear communication, like managing mundane things like information about orders, stuff like that, even business management, business and order management, and opening up communication, thinking about how I talk to and make myself understood with customers, and kind of thinking about viewpoints. So I feel like those are the things we kind of started into that can continue on through and are through lines. So it's like understanding where you are, where you come from, what you need and where you're going, what your goals are and what that means to you. And then understanding that you're in a process of growing, you're continuing to grow, you're not fixated on something you used to be or used to do. Combine that with the concept that all of what we do, to one degree or another, is about the interactions between people and how they're communicating, even to the point of how they're expressing themselves. And we got to think about, despite the fact that a lot of what we do is promotional, anytime you're decorating something, it is meant to be seen. It's meant to be communicating something to the viewer. So thinking about communications and how not only we present ourselves, but how we help other people, foster communications of their own, is really what we're all about.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know how we were only able to get through one. Weird.
Right? Yeah, I think
that's our show for today, folks.
Yeah. Get you on the take-up later on.
Yeah, exactly.
Keep this topic forever.
That's right. I mean, you're so right, Erich. Thinking back myself, the key takeaway that really stood out to me for the pricing was the fact that we have to charge what we're worth. Right. And we don't value what we do. We don't value enough of the skill side of it. Right. We're like, we do this every day, so it's second nature to us. And we don't realize that that's a value that we're providing. So like you said, we could talk about that ad nauseum forever. So let's keep moving forward. And I know you started getting us into and looking at the list here, I'm going, yeah, this is a 3-parter for sure. But
I was already looking ahead. What should we skip? Because I'd like to get to this one.
I would like for you guys to jump in. I know I'm technically the guest here, but I'd like drive this thing. Like I always say on the Take Up, I'm like, if somebody has a passion for a topic, like roll with it. That's part of
Let's do it.
Say, honestly, that's part of also what works with customers. You get them on a place where they have passion for what they're doing, they buy more stuff. I mean, yes, as callous as that sounds, here I am trying to get you to buy more stuff. But yeah, sometimes you get people excited about something. That's where they live too. That's their purpose too.
That's right. Yeah. Well, okay. Well, yeah. So we're bridging that. Let's start talking about this kind of wider topic, customer interaction and really marketing, right? Is kind of what that is, right? So these soft skills, right? These non-decoration skills, how can we put them to work? What are they, right? How do they come up in the marketing and things like that? So maybe just start us off there, Erich.
Well, I think the first point I want to make is something, and honestly, we've had our good friend Jay Bissell come on talk about branding very often. Whenever we talk about marketing, everybody's really focused. They're like, okay, it's Facebook ads, it's whatever, it's social ads, it's this, it's that, it's conventional marketing, whatever it is. They think about advertising and broadcasting. Whereas I would like all of us to think about marketing in the terms of branding. And in that case, branding is not just logos and shops, shirts, and all the stuff that we think of when we think about branding. Sure. It's everyone's perception of who we are. Our brand is actually what the client's perception of who you are and what you can do is, and the perception of your culture. And a bunch of that is also in customer interaction. Yeah. People don't think about the fact that every part of the interaction you have with a customer, every part of what they think of their interaction with you, their ability to get work done with you, how they feel, and yes, I'm going to use feely words, how they feel, well, once again, we're talking soft skills, in working with you, is your brand, is part of your brand. And so when we talk about customer interaction and marketing, to a degree, they're a lot of the same thing. And I would say, even now, in an age where we have infinite options for marketing, and trust me, as somebody who does a bunch of e-commerce marketing, it feels like infinite options. Word of mouth and referral is still super important in the decoration industry. I continually hear people say, oh yeah, no, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing marketing, I've got newsletters, all this stuff, I'm doing funnels. And then they stop and say, well, but I'd still say a large percentage of my business is coming from word of mouth and referrals. Well, word of mouth and referrals are all going to come from people who have had customer interactions with you, that had interactions with you that are valuable to them, that somehow put you ahead of the people around you. And a lot of that is about soft skills. It's about, are you a good listener? Have you been able to listen and focus on what they're doing? Have you, what I always call is taking the risk to care? Because when I came into business, there was still this attitude. I had certain folks, I had some salespeople and some people above me when I first came into this business who were like, nope, we have this very like 1980s like chrome and glass CEO attitude where I have to be super executive and everything's a pitch. And, it's like Gordon Gekko. It's like greed is good. Everybody was out there just trying to be this really glossy professional brochure version of themselves. And I stopped and said, okay, the way you actually get this done is more like a general store over the barrel head talking to the guy down the street. You have to care about the thing that they bring to you, and you have to care about their business in order to fully engage. And the funny thing was, with the advent of social media, that was scalable. It was like having social interactions and caring about your customers somehow became scalable and became possible on a universal basis, as well as a not one-on-one basis in a way that wasn't before. Yeah. So it's not that this old school mentality is, funny enough, also the new school mentality. You have to take the risk, to care about your customer enough to actually listen to what they're saying and care about what you're doing and how it affects their business, especially when we're talking about business to business or promotional products. Yeah. We should be caring about their result and how their business is doing. I know somebody would say, well, how do you remember all that? And it's not saying you have to do the whole thing with your like business cards. You're trying to remember everybody's kids. I know that's the old school idea of it. Honestly, CRM does help get some customer management. You look like a hero every time you remember stuff from old orders that you quote unquote remember as you're sitting in front of your multi-$1,000 system that tells you all this stuff. But taking that quote unquote risk to care and honestly just listening, and part of that customer interaction is questioning people thoroughly on the stuff they need to know, making them feel comfortable, like I said, really listening, and I mean, honest to goodness, learning to do active listening and talking to people is a big deal. And then trying to make that whole process as frictionless as possible, from the concept to approvals to the order getting done.
Yeah.
At every stage, we have to say, what is it that we can do that's going to make the other person's life easier? Trust me, every step you take toward that, even minimal steps, will result in gains. I know certainly a lot of our e-commerce got better when we realized part of the concept was, how can we fit into the way an organization's already running? The easy one is like, hey, you got somebody doing group sales for schools. Can you package everything individually for the kid with a kid's name so the person who's distributing it doesn't have to hunt through a box for stuff? Can you do that? If you can do that, you can charge more for it. And the person loves you who's in purchase, and then they come back over and over again. But if you do that and then add in, okay, I've got an online store where they can pay individually so that person doesn't have to chase money anymore. Those pieces of the customer interaction don't feel like marketing or branding, but your brand will be, oh, that's the person that takes care of it all. That's my guy who solves problems, not that's my shirt guy. I mean, you can expand more when you think about it that way.
You know, it's funny when you were saying that, because I was thinking back to many hundreds of trade shows and other sales opportunities, and how often I've said to sales reps, just stop talking. You need to stop talking. And I know you have your spiel, but that person, they had a credit card in their hand. Please stop telling them the benefits of this product. Just stop talking. You know, because some people, you know, I've got to say, I mean, I've got my elevator pitch, and I got to say it all. Hold on to that credit card for just a second. Let me finish telling you my story.
Let me talk you out of this. So,
exactly.
Did you learn that when I was your sales manager, Terry? I don't remember.
I don't remember
probably not.
Exactly.
I don't think you probably learned anything from me, but you taught me everything. That was the great part of our relationship.
we did work with a few people where I gave them that advice at trade shows.
Yes.
How do you sell so much at shows and I don't sell anything? Stop talking.
Stop talking. I know exactly who you're talking about too. All right. Well, so let's we've got Barb over here. Here, Eric, I'll push buttons. You just talk. Okay.
I was about to push buttons. No, I'll let you.
You're good. So Barb says, I would say at least 85% of my business is word of mouth. Wendy shared a referral is 90% for new. So 85, 90%. And it also qualifies new clients versus I have a shirt idea and that means one shirt, right? I mean, let's talk about that for a second here too, real quick. I made a couple of notes as you were talking there, Eric. Sure. So thinking about this word of mouth idea, right? So you've got two successful decorators here telling us that 85 to 90% of their business is word of mouth. Yeah. Well, the reality is that, like you said, right? That's what it's all about. It's not, it's not this latest and greatest Facebook funnel or whatever. I have to go figure out how to sell on Amazon and I've never done it before, that kind of thing, right? But that's what I think people kind of get drawn to. It's this magic bullet, right? Word of mouth takes, like you said, the risk of caring, taking that opportunity to really kind of put your care hat on and wear that empathy hat and things like that. And yeah, it's not a magic bullet. It's not like, word of mouth is going to get you a whole bunch of sales tomorrow, but it will build up over time. And I think what happens for people though is they get shiny object, that somebody's got this thing that you're going to 10x my sales, which is all baloney, right?
By and large.
Yes, yeah. But so I guess that's the thing I wanted to share. Like I was working with some folks inside of our success group, and they were like, oh, I need to get a Shopify store set up, and I need to figure out how to sell on Etsy. And I said to him, well, okay, so hold on a second. The business that you've gotten so far, where have those things come from? Like basically asking what's worked for you already. Why are you not focused on amplifying what works? right? So then once you build that up, then you can start going, okay, how can I slowly move into some of these other things, as opposed to saying, okay, I have to take all my eggs out of this basket and put it into this other basket because somebody said, having a e-commerce store was what every decorator needs to do. I think it's great to have an e-commerce site, but is it required for all decorators to be successful? Not at all. Right. So I guess I want to hear your guys' take on that side of it too, right? Because to me, word of mouth has to become a strategy. It has to become a tactic, something you build into your business. So I know there's a lot to unpack there. So go ahead, Eric.
Well, I think honestly, here's what I'll say, is that no matter what you're doing, there should be a little bit of strategy to it. And I don't mean that we're going to have to do analysis on everything before we try it, but just being everywhere because you should, quote unquote, is not always the best way to go. In fact, what people often do is stretch themselves too thin, and they're not really on any of these platforms, and they're not really paying attention to their stores, or they're not managing these things. And then they just look dead in the water, and they don't really get the attention they need. So whatever you can give energy to is going to be better off than other things that you don't. Yeah. But the funny thing is, if you think about even word of mouth, or you think about new kinds of advertising or social, or hey, TikTok, why does TikTok take off for some folks? Earnest, quick responses where they share exactly what they're trying to share, and often they're off the cuff and they're very human and personal. And I think that's part of it. We have to be able to develop our voice and we always talk about the elevator pitch, but I don't like the elevator pitch as much as building confidence in what you're selling and what you mean and what you're trying to do, and being able to just say that and express that. We add that to the social proof part of it, and that's the word of mouth part. So even if we're talking about social media or something else, if we can capture somebody and give them something that they want to share, and if you can vibe with somebody who says, yep, those are the kind of people I like, or those are the kind of products I like, and I want to share that stuff, that's impressive marketing in and of itself. But the thing is, the channel isn't necessarily always whatever's newest, whatever's the latest, whatever makes the most, the most noise, because if your people aren't there, it's not going to work. I'll say this. Let's say you have whatever it is, your club demographic happens to be people who are 60 plus, for whatever it is, your club, your people are there. TikTok may or may not be the best place to go and market right now. Facebook's probably a better way to go. But it's
all the rage, Eric. I have to do it.
I got it. The demographics don't say that's necessarily there. Are there people on there? Absolutely. Are there people who are older like myself messing around with TikTok? Yes, they exist. But at the same time, it may or may not be the top place for you to be. If your people aren't there, then you're not going to get social proof from that. And that's the funny thing. I've actually talked to people about that with one of the social media places that I don't spend time that I used to, Pinterest. There are some people out there who are using Pinterest strategically and making money on Pinterest. I just couldn't bring myself to do it, and I didn't have a following there. I could spend all my time making Pinterest boards. If I don't use that, and also here's the thing, even if you do use it, let's say you're someone who does then use it strategically, you have to share stuff. You have to bring it up. And part of this whole thing is being able to communicate yourself clearly too, and making a case for any of the things you do. Just putting a tool out there or being in a channel is no guarantee people will be there. And even if you are on a channel, you are in an area, you're going to have to promote that stuff. So part of it is very much like we talked about with pricing. You have to be able to believe in your message and believe in your product, believe in yourself, and be willing to get out there and say something. And that's not always easy for everybody.
Yeah,
but it's important.
And I'll say that, I know, Terry, I'm cutting you off, but you can jump in here in just one second, because I want to just piggyback on that real quick, because you're right. We have to be able to communicate. And I will say this, 99.9% of all the people out there do not share what they're doing, what they're passionate about, what they have coming up, right? What how they help people enough. And because, we think that we're too much and we don't want to be overly do too much. The three of us, I would say, are even included in that 99.9%, right? It's you feel like you don't want to kind of be intrusive, but in the world that we live in today, that's what it's all about, right? It's the attention. In fact, this goes back. It's like you see the same commercial over and over again. And yes, it gets annoying, but at the same time, that works, right? So it is a matter of making sure that we're out there sharing enough with enough confidence, that because you're bringing a service, you're bringing value to other people. And if you don't share, you are now stealing away their opportunity to be able to get that product or service from you, right? And it's not that you're stealing their attention. It doesn't go the other way around. If you're not sharing enough, you're stealing people's possibility to get something that could be of value to them. But you have to believe in that enough. So anyhow, I just wanted to kind of keep that rolling. But Terry, what were some of your thoughts on word of mouth?
Well, Aaron, Eric, you touched on this right at the beginning of what you were saying, being authentic. You know, there are folks out there that they'll be online and they're ShamWow. You know, they got the hands going and it's who they are. But then they bring a guest on and say, you do it too. And it's you know, it's not authentic. You watch it and it's painful to watch because it's not them. And you know that's not just, you know, on TikTok or whatever. That's in sending emails or you know, it has to be you because when somebody knows, well, you mentioned Jay Bassell. Yeah. Jay is this guy. Jay is in your face. Jay is bam, bam. And so that works for him in everything he does. But I can't duplicate that because it's not authentic for me. It's me pretending to be Jay. You know, that sort of thing. So and I think people see that, and it's got to work for you. So you can't go out and buy the book on here is how you sell and then drop in your customer's name into all those things in the book because it's not you. So and I have one more thing to add here before we you guys comment. You know how word of mouth works, and I know a decorator who's doing about $5 million in sales right now, and he said to me, Terry, I've never advertised. For our podcast listeners, I'm doing air quotes. He said all word of mouth. Now, did he start out doing $5 million? No, he was in his kitchen decorating, but here's how he went from his kitchen to $5 million, doing good work, delivering on time, doing good work, delivering on time. Because word of mouth only works if you are doing good work and deliver on time. Maybe doing something a little bit unique in what you do. And you know, one of you guys mentioned, can you put the kid's name on everything and make it easy for me to sell? That's what the $5 million guy does. It's just his services are just start to finish. All somebody has to do is say, send this item to this customer, and he does all the rest, and it's beautifully packaged, and it's like getting an iPhone when you open up one of his boxes. You know, it's like you slowly peel it away and I can't throw this box away now because it's just too cool. So I'm gonna put it on my shelf over here. So you know, do good work, deliver on time, be who you are.
There you go.
Absolutely. I mean, honestly, I think that's something that people miss, though. And I will say this. It doesn't mean we all have to be the same version of this. And I'll say, from working in shops that had multiple salespeople, I think the funniest thing I ever noticed was that we had different people, and I'm not going to name names, so anybody who's out there, hopefully you don't get offended by what I'm about to say. If you decide that the personality I'm describing is you, then that's your choice. But there was a time in which I worked with 3 or 4 salespeople at a time who were all working at a custom apparel shop, and we had one who was very sweet and flirty with people and very hangy and loved on people and was very personable. And we had another person who was very business-like, but also was about making deals and helping people out. We had another guy who was from back east, and he kind of was very kind of in with himself, kind of forward about things, but he definitely had kind of a you and me get it kind of personal network kind of vibe. And then we had a guy who absolutely abused his customers. And I mean, he abused his customers. He told them their ideas were stupid. He told them that the stuff wasn't going to work, and he told them they needed to pay more. And he did it violently sometimes. And what I'm going to tell you that's going to shock you is, after all the stuff I just said, there were different clients who liked every one of those personalities and gravitated toward them, including the guy who abused the customers. Like, there was a clientele, there was a tribe that wanted someone to tell them, your idea is stupid, let me fix that for you, here's your dumb idea back better. There was a client for that. I'm not saying everybody's going to be that way, and personally, I haven't seen that work as often. I was always shocked when someone would
There's a restaurant for that.
Exactly. Yeah, there is. There's more than one now. The funny thing everybody knows about Dick's, that restaurant, there's now one called Karen's that's very similar, and you can imagine exactly how that goes.
Okay.
Suffice it to say, it doesn't mean that your personality has to be the same carbon copy of any personality, including ours, to do whatever you're trying to do, whatever you're trying to get across. But there is something about some authenticity in it, though you do have to understand that maybe there's not as much market for being abused about your t-shirt order, but there's people for every kind of personality and every kind of setup. It's more about understanding what the customer needs and looking for that base. That's the thing. If the guy who was rough with people went out and was looking toward the more marshmallow clients and just was running roughshod through clients who did not like that kind of communication, he's never going to win. There's no chance. You have to understand that there's a group of people who wants what you want and there's a group of people who doesn't. And if you continually try to browbeat people into liking your way of doing things, it's probably not going to go very well. There is a certain part of that. And I'll say this, backpacking back on Terry's comment about, the $5 million growth guy who's doing everything end to end. That's the thing. You have to know your customer to do that. That takes listening. Some of the bigger clients we used to service at some of the shops I worked at, it really came down to going to a customer interview and saying, all right, what was the biggest problem you've been having so far getting this done? What made you crazy about getting decorated apparel for your employees or getting uniforms done in the last 6 months? Or why are you talking to us right now? Because I know you've had somebody else. You're an established business. I see people wearing uniforms right now. Why are we having a meeting right now? And what does that mean to you? And what is the dream interaction? What would be awesome? Let's say what is it you want to work in a certain way? How would your best version of getting to the end result be for you?
Yeah.
And if you find out that some of the stuff at first you might go, some of it sounds outlandish. Some people really are like, oh, free shirts. Of course, there's always that person who's going to be a dork to say something like that. Most of the time, it's little stuff like, I used to try and contact them on a Monday and they never got back to me till Friday. Or, it's a real pain to do the order forms that we currently have, and I wish I had something online. And you find out that order form, setting up one online order form for this client suddenly, pulls this, massive $1 million client off of somebody else's roles just because no one ever asked them if there was a better way. Yeah. So that listening's huge.
Yeah. I have a similar story. I don't know if I told the candy bar story, the candy company and the label company I work for. I'll tell the quick, brief version of that. So
10 years and we have a new story.
I know I've told this story somewhere before. The fact that I haven't told one here is shocking to me. But so I was working as a commission-only salesman for a digital printing company and a label, and they produce labels as well. And I kept showing up at this one place over and over again. I kept getting turned away. It was a company that made candy. There locally, this was in the Colorado Springs area. And I mean, this went on for, several years probably of me calling, getting turned away at the door, kind of over and over and over again. Finally, one day I call, it was in one of those situations where it's like, yep, here's another no. Okay. And I'm just trying to get through the no's. I'm like, this is always a no. I'm going to call that person. And and they're like, yeah, come on in. I'm like, oh crap, I had plans this afternoon, but okay. And so I come on in and I get this massive order from them, like you were just talking about, Eric. And I'm like, what? So finally I had the courage to go, okay, well, here's the deal. I've been calling on you for like 2 years and have been told no over and over again. What was the difference? What changed? Why am I all of a sudden getting this business? And they said, well, we've been using the same company for a long time, and we were happy with them. We didn't want to change, but we just got their Christmas present. And it was a box of chocolates from our biggest competitor. and so, like you said, right, it just, be smart, think about who it is that you're dealing with. And for me, it was just showing up and being consistent, being persistent, and right place at the right time, right? So every year when it came time to send our best customers Christmas presents after that, I was very clear about the fact that I was the only one going to find a Christmas present for them.
Well, and I mean, think about this for a minute. Isn't this just the epitome of that blanket attitude saying one size fits all. We grabbed a bunch of chocolate from the same supplier and we sent it to every single person on our rolls instead of thinking about what might be useful. Now I know that's a time investment, but it makes a difference. I can't tell you how many little technicalities or things like that I've seen people lose jobs over. One of my favorites is misspelling someone's name in your reply email. I have gotten clients from it, and I have had people where, trust me, that little H on the end of my name, I sometimes can tell. I'm like, I can tell if you care. Why? Because if you roll with Eric with a K or Eric with a C, most of the time I'm looking at that going, okay, you're not super detail oriented. And I try not to make that. It doesn't make me close out entirely, but if you don't think that I feel that little tally in my head sometimes I do.
Yeah,
people
absolutely.
who take care and think about things do things like make sure they spell your name right, or try and address you the way you would like to be addressed. Or let's say this is the other thing too. If you have a customer inlet form right now, and it says how would you prefer to be contacted, and they say text instead of email or calling, don't call them.
Yeah.
Don't call them unless you literally must, unless it's an emergency with an order. If it's just on their intake and you've decided that you like calling better after you asked them how they would like to be contacted, that's a bad call. Trust me, they will never answer.
They gave the wrong answer. No, I'm calling you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Don't call me. That's right. I'm right there with you.
I do have a quick story. I know I've told all my stories before, but so when I was in college,
earmuffs.
When I was in college, I did an internship at an ad agency in Chicago, and the ad rep that I worked with there, he was laughing and telling me how I got that job, and he said it was between me and another student who was actually the president of the ad club at Ohio University, but I got the job anyway because the president of the company was sitting there looking at both of our resumes, and this ad rep goes, he grabs one of them, wads it up, and throws it in the trash, and he goes, "Well, what did you do that for?" He spelled my name wrong. So I got the job.
There you go.
I think the funny thing is we can actually bring this back to the whole like communicating and branding thing too, because it's when we're really selling something. I understand that we all believe in our products, and I know that we think that our printing or our embroidery is the best ever, and you have to kind of pump yourself up and believe that. But to an outside viewer, as long as we hit a certain threshold of quality and delivery, our products are pretty similar, especially if they're bringing the art and we're reproducing their art. If we're not adding something more creative to it, our products can be pretty similar. What do you think divides the experience between us and someone else? Someone says, "Oh, great customer service." That's the bar of entry. Being a decent human to your customer is the bar of entry. No medals. No medals for just being decent. Sorry. But what is it that gets you past that or differentiates you? A lot of it is care for their communications, how honestly your personality and how you carry yourself. It's your own creative spin on things. It's your branding. It's also, like we said, your customer interaction. That's what's going to separate you when the field is close. Don't get me wrong. You offer something other people don't offer. Now you have something that can set you ahead, and it can be about product again.
Yep.
But in the space where a lot of us are, which is like business to business decorating or even business to consumer decorating, where we are going to put a thing on a garment that can look pretty even from the outside.
Yep.
Even if we know the difference between what we do and what someone else does, the customer doesn't always. But what may not look different from or what may look different, what may stand out is the way we communicate, the way we take care of people, and honestly having that confidence in what we're doing and being able to communicate what we do to someone and maybe communicate those differences so that they get it. And doing so in a way that makes sense for them. It's the same thing with niches, by the way. I think we are kind of the next thing we wanted to talk about, which I know we'll probably not get to, was finding your niche. And I think it's a lot like finding your tribe in the way we talked about earlier with communication and with the way we serve people.
Yeah. Well, and Eric, I say this all the time, like you said, what we do as far as the product decoration side of it. Yeah. I mean, definitely there's going to be different levels and things like that. But at the end of the day, you're kind of splitting hairs with that. So you could have somebody, and Barb talked about in this comment here, that she bring on the competition, right? And so you could have, so let's say you're a brick and mortar shop and you're on Main Street and you do embroidery and screen printing, right? You could have somebody that plops themselves right next door. For some reason, the building's the exact same. They have all the same equipment. They do embroidery and they do screen printing, and you're like, oh gosh, that's the same. No, it's not. It's not at all the same company, because what makes you unique is going back to what we talked about with brand, right? What is your brand? Kim Johnson had a quote that she loves. I got to go find it. It's a little ways up here, but where did it go? Kim Johnson. Thank you, Eric. See, even when he's not supposed to. All right. So she says, one of my favorite quotes, your smile is your logo, your personality is your business card, and the way you make others feel is your trademark. I mean, and that's what a brand is for sure. So I think that's really important to for people to understand, right? And that is finding your niche, right? Your niche is people that will identify and be attracted by your personality, right? You know, people want to make finding their niche way too hard. It's got to be this softball community, blah blah. No, it doesn't. It can be a specific kind of person that is attracted to how you interact. It's going to be a passion area of yours, right? So really what a niche is you've got these circles of things. You've got what you're passionate about, you've got what your values are, and then you've got, kind of what falls in between those things kind of becomes your niche market in a lot of ways. So I know we're going to talk a little bit more about that. So let's hold on, because I think we can get to niche. And then I think the other part, because it does make another segment, I think it does become part 3 of this, by the way, just throwing that out there now. So if I can go back and
no to part 3.
I just want to go back and talk about authenticity, which Terry was talking about, and kind of go a little bit deeper on that, because here's what I have discovered though, Terry. So you talked about, you're not going to be Jay Bassell, you're going to be Terry Combs. But I think what some people do is they use that going, well, that's just not who I am, right? So when we talk about how much you share and how much you put your stuff out there, that is not a personality trait to not be able to share. When we're passionate about something, it doesn't matter how quiet of a person you are. I mean, I've met the most quiet kind of internal people ever, and as soon as you get them talking about something that they really care about, they talk just as much as the rest of us, right? And so you can't use this authentic, well, that's not who I am thing as a crutch. You have to still put yourself out there. Now, you might not be somebody that's going to go do live videos like this all the time, or you're not going to be, standing behind a stage with 1,000 people on it or something like that, and that's okay. But you still have to figure out a way to share more and share authentically who you are. So if you're more of a one-on-one type person, well, then you got to get your butt to work, getting out there in front of as many people as you can, as often as you can. You got to find a way. Okay, well, you need to go, set up and be part of a chamber or something like that, right? So figuring out how to share more is super important. And I think it's important to share with people that don't use this, oh, that's not who I am thing as a crutch. So what's your guys' take on that? Maybe Terry, because I stole off what you were talking about there, and then Eric, you can fill in.
Well, you're exactly right. I mean, you can't just say, well, I'm a meek, quiet person, so I'm not going to reach out to customers. And I think a great example is Equipment Zone. Equipment Zone has an office outside of New York City, and Equipment Zone has an office here in Tempe, Arizona. The sales force in the New York City area operates differently than the sales force here. We're all a little more West Coast or Midwest type of folks, and we don't want to call too many times, and we don't want to get in make people feel like, hey, they're desperate for business. They keep calling me, but there's recognized styles, but that doesn't mean that both sales forces aren't very, very successful. They are. They just approach it from a different way, but and as well still get out there in front of the customers and still take your skills and your authentic self, and that's the way you make your presentation. But but you still got to make your presentation. Is that what you're getting at, Aaron?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Because I've heard that way too often. Well, that's just not me. Okay. Well, if you want to be a successful business owner, you need to figure out what authentic you is, and like Terry just said, make your presentation, right? Figure out. So yeah, like I said, it might not be live video, it might not be something that you think other people do, right? Like you're not going to go be Jay Bassell, but you certainly are going to be Terry Combs, and you're going to present in your way. And I guess the step that I'm trying to get at, and I think you kind of shared that, Terry, was you can't let authenticity be your crutch. You have to actually use that and figure out how you can amplify who you are. And the word that I always use is amplify. So I however you want to kind of roll from that. So Eric, what are your thoughts there?
Well, there's a couple different thoughts. I mean, I think we've talked about all this before with both find your niche, customer interaction, whatever it is. We talk about authenticity, but there is something I've said to people a million times. And funny enough, it's in the craft to business chain where people come from craft or art into becoming pro decorators. I used to see this a lot more, not as much now. With the rise of online merch marketing, everybody seems to be making a little store. So it's not as much now, but there still can sometimes be this kind of hesitancy to do business. And I finally tell people at the end, I'm like, well, if you want to sell things, you're going to do business, you're going to do sales.
Yeah.
There is an amount of business that needs to be done. If you're someone who's like, oh, I can't fill out a tax form, I just can't. Well, you're going to have to, or you're going to have to find somebody who will. Yeah. And that's also possible with marketing. You can find a super outgoing person who likes to share, who still vibes with the rest of what your company and your purpose is about. And you can build a team of people. You can hire people to do that if you can afford that at the stage that you're in your business. These are things you can also outsource to some degree. But in the end, I think that when we're talking about how we set each other or set ourselves apart, or how we develop kind of a unique culture, that part of that is being authentically who you are. However, I'm going to make one kind of weird contrary point here. In doing e-commerce, I have made multiple businesses where I create a store to a purpose that communicates in the style of the customer that I'm trying to court. And it's not branded the same way as my main store. It's fully okay. If you have multiple businesses that you're running, or multiple product lines, or let's just say you're courting a particular client, to say, I am going to still be the authentic person I am behind the scenes. I'm still going to be giving the kind of service I give. You are here for me because that's what you want. However, let's say in marketing and active branding and the kind of things that we traditionally consider branding, it's totally fine to have multiple storefronts that are fulfilled by your store with the same quality, execution, and care, that have branding or logos or styles or ways of communicating that vibe with the customer that they're supposed to be attaching to. Traditional marketing is still somewhat present there and still necessary. And I'll say certainly there's a very different vibe when you are selling directly to sportsmen, and this different vibe when you're selling to a hospital chain, and a different vibe when you're selling direct to customer. And if you're selling to like high school and sports pride wear, and all of these things are different. If you go and say, all right, you all have to go to this one website that looks the same, acts the same, has all the same questions on it, and doesn't necessarily make sense to everybody in those different, kind of groupings, that might not be the best call. In an age where we can very easily have separate stores that all funnel into our same order chain, it's totally fine for you to go out and say, all right, like I always talk about my first niche, and since I pick on myself first, it makes it easy. I had this thing where I sold tote bags that had folk music instruments on them, weird instruments people didn't have any merch for, and I made merch because I was somebody who played them. So I made this merch, and my website, the style of the bags that I chose, the logos that I was using, everything that I did was toward this kind of folksy home wood grain. You could imagine the thing that I'm talking about, because the people who were doing this stuff are like people who are playing Appalachian mountain dulcimer. Like, that's the people who were going to this site to pick it up. But some of them were still into it, but they still wanted that aesthetic. They thought it was interesting. They liked the weird stuff. That was kind of the concept of, hey, I play this thing not everybody knows about, but it's still something with some history to it. You think about that identity of the person who's doing that stuff, and then you say, all right, how do I market to them? And that doesn't mean that I wasn't still the me who was, doing work for FDNY at the time, or the me that was selling garments into department stores on a larger scale. Those people were all there, but that small boutique site that I made just for them spoke directly to them. you can still authentically be yourself and craft your message toward the people who need to get that message. I think it's best when you vibe with that niche yourself, when you understand that niche, or at least you've taken the time, because part of this can also be research. Everybody assumes, we talk about our first and easiest niche market, and we talk about this in our consumer interactions as well, but our first and easiest niche market is one to which we belong ourselves, so that we understand the lingo and we can speak, as they do, talk the talk and know what the culture is. You can also help serve a niche by doing research. You can make it a research project and say, I'm going to go find out as much as I can about this niche that I'm interested in. I'm going to talk to the people, ask them real questions that are pointed towards serving them better, make up some customer profiles, and then market to that. And that doesn't mean you're being inauthentic. It means you're serving these people in a way that you feel like they want to be served. That's fine. I think that's the thing. The first niche, we always talk about that first niche because it's when people are having trouble getting to niche marketing or getting to sales at all, because it makes you more comfortable. But your next niche, the thing that you expand into, the next market you get into, you might have to do research. And I think that's fine, and it still can be authentic, even if maybe it's not your native waters you're swimming in. You can still research and get there. And I think that actually leads back to caring and listening.
Yeah. Love it. Yeah, very, very good stuff.
A lot of words for simple concepts. Sorry. That's probably my brand right there.
Yeah, there you go. Well,
talk fast.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the other thing I think is important for people to understand, right? Is we all do come at these things from different perspectives. For me, I spend most of my time working with newer businesses that are trying to build a foundation, right? And so for me, I want to simplify it down as much as we can. And you're right? When you talk about niche marketing, my focus is always about, let's find one to focus on first. I get that you can have multiple, but we're not there yet. Right. And so it's kind of where all of our perspectives come from. And that's the same thing with each person's business, right? Your perspective is going to be what kind of feeds into what you do and how you market and who you are. That's authenticity, all that kind of stuff. So
I hate to jump in on that, but also imagine if someone came to you with an opportunity and you can serve them, you can treat it like a niche that by getting to know it. I think that's the other thing too.
Yeah.
I didn't start out in doing, movie stuff, but when it came to be where people needed it done and I learned what they needed, I became someone who did movie stuff.
Yeah,
I did
absolutely.
patches and stuff for movie and TV production. That was not our original niche. We weren't people who came from it. I've never been on the set, but we learned what they needed and we became part of that. I think that's the thing, is that I want people to understand there's still growth potential, even when you are, like you said, being authentic. Like you said, I don't want it to be a crutch. Don't let it be a crutch where you can only serve one market. If the market comes to you, there's no reason why you can't become, someone who's versed in the market and who knows that customer.
Well, you can't be so cut and dry that, nope, it's not the niche that I wrote on my yellow legal pad 4 years ago. Sometimes you find the niche, sometimes the niche finds you.
Absolutely. And you're exactly right. I mean, I know a lot of people that are, have niche areas that they focus on that, it came to them. And so, you do have to listen to your customers and understand, because a niche has also got to be something for you that, you can do and do well. Right. Yeah. So it's one thing to say, there's a lot of business in X, but if that's not something that you're good at or you can't become good at very easily, like I know a lot of people that do sublimation plaques, right? That not plaques, but what's the stone stuff? Subless slate type stuff.
Yeah.
And I have always struggled with that, right? For whatever reason, it's just never been a product that I've been good at making. So for me, it's like, gosh, is there that market out there? Absolutely. But, those things cost you $10 a piece just blank. And so ruining those over and over again, it takes a lot to be efficient with that. So that's the other part of our niche is, right? It has to be something that we can do and make repeatable. And I think that might be where other people will struggle, is they want to be all things to everybody, right? Your catalog is, here's the Sanmar brochure, or here's the,
the entirety of
Sanmar. Connie's got 5,000 different sublimation blanks. So yes, this is what I can make, right? And then you get this product and you can't make it and you struggle and now you're focused all on that effort. Whereas if you go, you know what, I am the I'll just use my wife as an example. She does really great at these ceramic ornaments and just can crush those things with I don't understand. We've got two different presses. We've got a 16 by 20 and an 11 by 15 size, and she insists on using the 11 by 15 size and just keeps cranking them out, right? But yet I could use the 16 by 20 size, and because my personality and the way my focus level and probably screw up, double the amount, but yet I'm thinking I'm going more faster because I'm doing more, right? So it's just get good at something and become that person, and that becomes your niche too, right? So
and repeat.
Yeah. Well, that's also awareness of yourself. I mean, it's awareness of yourself and awareness of your market, and isn't it all just coming down to listening? Once again, it's listening and it's communication, and that includes the conversations you're having with yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, the worst person to lie to ever is yourself.
Yeah.
Because it never ends well, and you always knew. There's this point in time where you realize you're like, okay, I knew this was going to be like this. I knew it was going to be like this from the moment I started lying to myself and saying I was going to do X thing differently.
Your internal voice is going, "You're a liar. You're a liar."
Well, and that's the hard part. A lot of us want to do everything for everyone, and I'll fully admit it. I like the one-stop shop. I do. You can make the one-stop shop work under certain circumstances, and some people, like, you're in a small underserved market and people want a local place to go. Sometimes that one-stop shop is a great way to go, and you're just going to have to muddle through the stuff you're not best at. But my personal belief is you can also do the dream team setup, especially if you're somewhere where you have access, and everything is a short ship away these days. Well, when the shipping's working. So building that dream team is the other option. You can say, I have these people I go to who I trust. They send me work, I send them work, and we make it about, like, what do we talk about? The co-opetition, right? Yeah, we might be in overlapping places, but sometimes we go to the expert for the thing that makes most sense. And as a digitizer, this is the story I always bring up. I had one person I used for animals. I can digitize a dog as good as anybody else, or at least decently, but there was a lady who did individual pets with their fur patterns and exact placement of individual patches of hair and everything. And she did this stuff incredibly, and she was a lot faster than me because I took too much time doing them. I hired her to do digitizing of animals. Everybody's gonna be like, Eric, the digitizing guy, hired in a digitizer. Absolutely. Number one, she was great at it. She had a natural hand to it that I didn't seem to get, or a very practiced hand, one or the other. And number two, I'll be honest with you, it's not the best use of my time. I'm slower at animals than she is, and I produce work that I don't think is quite as good as hers. So I sent those off to her all the time. If somebody came in with their, show animal, their champion show animal, I'm like, I know exactly who I'm going to call, and I'm going to make sure she gets that money. She is excellent at this work. And it left me to do logo work and patches, and also efficient work that was more of the corporate spectrum that was the best for me.
Yeah.
And that's just part of knowing yourself too. You have to know sometimes you're like, all right, I can take this on because I want the challenge, but I better understand that I'm spending my own money on personal development today by taking a job on that's probably not as profitable.
Yeah.
Or I can let somebody do it who's doing the work well and build a partnership that's going to serve me down the road.
Yeah.
So all of these things, I think, come together. It's just knowing yourself.
For sure.
Well, Aaron, I see that you have you've taken our outline and already noted part 3.
Yes, I have. We definitely are part 3. So real quick though, back to this one-stop shop idea too, though. I want to make sure that I'm really clear on this, that being all things to everybody and being a one-stop shop are two completely different things. Absolutely. Yeah. And so yes, if you want to be the one-stop shop for people, like Eric said, you're probably going to need a dream team. You're going to need to have outsourced partners because you want to be the very best at what you're doing. And so you need to find outsourced partners that are very best at those other things that you're going to be the one-stop shop for. But being all things to everybody is completely different. Whereas, being a one-stop shop, you're going to serve who your core customers are, and you're going to take care of all their needs. But being a one-stop shop that is all things to everybody is going to be anybody that walks in off the street. I mean, like, for example, I have people that we work with inside of our success group that, their business where they're at, the smaller orders are just not for them. right? And they will admit every time they take one of those orders because somebody, friend of a friend type thing, it ends up being the biggest nightmare in their business, and they can't charge enough money for it, right? Terry, you've talked about that, Terry, a lot. You just can't physically charge them enough money to make that a job that's going to be beneficial for your business. And so, being a one-stop shop means really clearly understanding who your customers are, and then again understanding who your outsource partners are, and doing all that, or being able to grow to that point where you can bring it all in-house. But you have to have enough of a market for it. I think people decide, I'm going to be an one-stop shop because I've been out there at the trade shows buying all the shiny objects, and they get good at none of those things, and that's where the problems come in.
I've mentioned before, Kim, earmuffs. I had a competitor when I first got in business in a previous century, and and their slogan was "We print anything." And in my seminars, I always say, but their slogan isn't "We print anything well."
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally.
All right. Well, like Terry noted, I did go ahead and break it into part 3, and I've already got it on the schedule. So September 30th will be part 3 of this episode. And part 3 is going to be a lot about management. So management of your business, management of your staff, day-to-day operations, and efficiencies. So I know Terry's already excited. I can see it in his eyes.
I am very excited about that.
That is his wheelhouse. So Eric and Terry will be having a great conversation, and I will sit back and go, you guys are right. But we did have one other one. I know we're already into bonus time, so we probably can't go too deep on this, but it's kind of what we do here at Two Regular Guys, so I don't know if it needs a whole lot of lip service, but Eric, education, keeping up with the industry. Go.
Do it. Do it now. Do it today. Do it every day. Never stop doing it. I think one of the things that people do is they consider education, or they consider working on things to be play, and then they'll say that doesn't have a place in the business. And I think including play has place in our business. Messing around with something because it's cool. If you got into the business because you want to make a cool shirt and then you keep yourself from ever making anything cool again, how much do you think you're going to love this business?
Yeah.
After you're 10 years in, keep learning. Also, keep learning about things that don't feel like they're your favorite thing in the world. Trust me, I've done a lot of seminars on marketing and e-commerce that, admittedly, by about 3/4 of the way through the seminar, I'm definitely looking around for a way out. Even if it was valuable to me. But what I'm going to say is, I have always been served well by consuming broadly, continuing to educate myself, continuing to listen to the tides that are around me, to the kind of new streams of things coming around. And I think it's always applicable to some part of what you're doing. And even if the things you learn, you find out are not for you, that's a valuable lesson in and of itself. So I have to say, education is incredibly valuable. Some of the hardest times in my career were when I had no place to go for any information, and I was just on my own doing trial and error without any sort of recourse. But I will also say that was still valuable stuff. And I think the combination of the two, which is the play, the trial and error, and listening to people who've been there before, listening to people who are also sometimes doing new things that have been in the business less than you, is all part of the education we should continue.
Yeah.
If nothing else, keep your eyes and ears open. That's the first part of education. The second part is listen to people who know better. Look for people who are doing the kinds of things you want to do and listen. And even when you find that you're going to deviate from their path and make something new, you're going to start with a foundation, and you'll be able to avoid some pitfalls, if nothing else.
Yeah.
So, 100%. I mean, education is it's critical, but it's also part of education is, once again, back down to listening. Listening to what's out there, listening to what's around you, and just listening to messages from other people with different points of view.
Yeah.
All that is part of the education I think we need to do.
100%. All right, Terry, your take?
Well, I'm a big education guy, as you know, and even giving education or receiving education, and that's part of what makes this business and any business exciting is learning about new things. And our friend Lon Winters, he does some really cool decoration things, and I'm like, oh gosh, I didn't know you could do that, and now I'm going to try it. And so I'm all about that, and seminars, webinars, trade shows. It's not just going there and saying, okay, I'm going to buy A or B. It's about learning. And I've always said, because when I first got started in screen printing, I went to every trade show that I could, and I went to every seminar. And my philosophy was, if I sit here in this seminar for an hour and a half and I learn one thing that makes me and my business better, it was worth that hour and a half. And so, get out there and be a sponge. There's a lot of poor information out there. There's also a lot of really good information out there, and always be learning, always be experimenting, always be trying new things. And it's going to make your business that much more fun and exciting to do, in my opinion. So,
yeah. And I'm glad you said sponge, Terry, because I think education should be inspiration, right? Like you said, there's a lot of good information. There's also a lot of bad information, but it can all be inspiring in some way. It's up to you to then figure out and then implement that education into what it is that you're doing. And I think, you talk about being a sponge. I think it's really important to be a sponge and take that stuff in. But what happens with a sponge, right? You have to squeeze it out every once in a while. And that squeezing out is the taking action. The squeezing out is the doing. And I've talked about this before, but this whole concept of shelf help, right? I know a lot of people that take in a ton of information all the time and then never do anything with it, right? The information just sits on the shelf in their head, and that information that you're taking in is only as valuable as the action that you then take with it. And I think that, to me, is what ultimately education becomes, right? You suck it in, but you got to squeeze the sponge out every once in a while, meaning you got to put it on the counter and clean some things up and take some action. But, then you put it back in to soak up some more information. And it's just it's a cycle. And I think everybody focuses so much on the destination of all of these things, right? The destination of, I'm going to be perfect decorator. Right? I mean, Terry's been doing this for a little bit of time, short amount of time. And so he knows a lot of things, right? But every day he's still learning and doing more, right? He's getting inspiration from people like Lon, and he's, doing that kind of stuff. Erich is the same way. He's a digitizer that I think, probably is going to forget more about digitizing than most people will ever know. But at the same time, he's always open. He's always learning. He's always taking in. He's always educating himself. So I think that's really important, that it's about the process and the cycle and about taking action on it, I think, is what education is to me.
And I'd like to kind of amplify things that both of you guys said. First thing, what Terry said about, and actually what Ramona said, I'll go ahead and say Ramona's comment is actually good on this one. She said, what Terry said, just one thing makes it worth it all the time. Here's the other thing I'm going to let you know. You don't necessarily know what that one thing is at the end of the class.
Yeah.
You may take that message home. You may take those notes home. You go reread your notes. If you've bought, let's say, conference recordings, or if it's online, you might watch that video a second time. And even then, you may not know the one thing because the client may not have arrived yet that causes you to engage with whatever it is that you learned.
Yeah.
So keep your ears up. I think you'll find one thing usually from the get-go. Something you hear during the conference will immediately click with you. During whatever seminar it is, very frequently, but then you don't know what else might be there that will be part of your future kind of makeup, what makes you what you as a decorator, or what makes your technique work. And the other thing, Aaron talked about action. Invariably, that's why I talk about the trial and error. The trial and error is inevitable. The trial and error will come for you. Are you going to mess up garments? Yes. Trust me, I will tell your future right now. Are you going to ruin a garment? Absolutely. If you continue doing this, you will ruin a garment and mess up an order. It is just a matter of time. And in fact, if you're not occasionally ruining something, you're probably not pushing yourself very much or trying new things.
Exactly.
That is probably the truth. And the first thing I want to say is, like, we talked about this just a little bit at the end of the last show. Maintaining the beginner's mindset also means we have to kind of give ourselves a little dispensation before we start. We have to forgive ourselves ahead of time for the fact that we're not going to jump into a brand new technique, or even a brand new way of selling, or going to social media, or even handshaking and doing an elevator pitch the first time and be awesome from the get-go and never mess up. And I am absolutely guilty of this. Your first effort not going perfectly is fine, and it shouldn't make you want to throw the towel in.
Yes.
You have to jump out and say, all right, I'm going to forgive myself ahead of time for the fact that I'm about to make a mess of things. And funny enough, it goes back to what Aaron said about sales, where he's like, I'm just trying to get through the no. And I'll tell you this, when you're doing brand new techniques, just try and get to the ruin sample. Just be like, just get to the one that doesn't work, because the other
You're one ruined garment closer.
Yeah. Not to mention, in the embroidery world, at least, a lot of what people struggle with are things like distortion that's natural to the process. You want to know how you counteract distortion? Ruin one garment, measure the distortion, and counteract it in the software. That's how you literally fix distortion. Try on the garment where it's not working, repeat the same process, fixing the error in the software that you see on the product. You almost can't. In some cases, you almost can't know how to distort things correctly until the ruined garment happens.
Well,
So,
I have a tip. I have a tip also that you can say to your customers when you ruin those garments. I think it looks better this way.
I always say it's distressed. Learn the word. Right. It's distressed. It's a rustic feel. That's what I was going for.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we've covered plenty. We are well into bonus time here. But I do want to bring in this comment from Kim Johnson. She says, wait, what? A new story? Because I have to give Terry credit here. And maybe I'm just getting up there in years and I don't remember all these stories now. But I don't think I'd ever heard that intern story before, Terry. So that was a new one.
We got new stories from both of you guys. I don't know what I'm going to do.
Crazy time.
I guess we can do this for another 10 years.
That's a good point. All right.
Season 11 on the way.
All right, everybody. Well, tune in for part 3 where we get into the management stuff more. September 30th will be the date on that one. So a little ways out, but part 3 coming not too distant future. Speaking of not too distant future, Eric, what is coming up for you, sir?
Well, today, you guys know, it is Friday. Education Friday means it's time for the take-up. Today is episode 123, and that will be stitch type interactions. And we're going to be talking about the different stitch types and how they interact with each other. That's a lot of what people have trouble with in making these things work the way they should. And we'll talk a little bit about how each of these stitch types work and what you can change about those stitch types to make them work with each other. So how does it work on different garments, and what happens when you put certain kinds of stitches next to each other or on top of each other, as well as how they work with support materials. So join live, share your experiences and methods. Love to hear more about how you do targeted testing to make things work. It's a lot of what we're talking about today. Like I just said, get into that ruined garment. But if you head over to erichcampbell.com, you go up to the top, there is a tab that says the take up. Click on it and you will get the playlist, the link to my YouTube channel, and the latest video right in the page. The next thing to watch out for coming up shortly is Expressions Expo Fort Worth, coming up fast like a freight train, at least as far as I feel about it. And I've got a pre-show long session on making patches, making smaller in patches coming up. So go to impressionsexpo.com, and like I said, end of September, beginning of October, that's the time for Fort Worth. I will be out there in Fort Worth teaching that, as well as it looks like my editing class now that they've updated the schedule again. So we may have a couple of classes for me out there in Fort Worth.
Wow, the Erich Campbell wing is definitely happening again.
It's a little smaller than the 6 classes I taught in January, but I'm thankful for what I got.
There, I finally got it. All right, what else, Eric?
That's it. That's it for today.
That's it for you. Got it. All right.
Let it go.
Well, I will share real quickly, and then Terry will jump to you. You get to be the headliner this time, Terry. So, October 28th and 29th, I will be hosting the Grow Your Business Effortlessly workshop. You guys may have heard me talking about that. We did it on July 15th, and it went so well that the content, everybody was so excited about it that I got great feedback, and I've decided that, and little secret for everybody here, those of you that did attend got to realize that the 90-minute presentation that turned into a 3-hour presentation, because we were doing really cool things and people were growing their business plan and it was working well. So anyhow, I've decided that it will continue to be a 3-hour workshop. We'll just split it up into 2 days. And so that will be happening October 28th and 29th, oursuccessgroup.com/grow. More details coming soon. We're getting it all together. But I will say this, our VIP, we are adding an extra little bonus at the end. So 90 minutes on the 28th, 90 minutes on the 29th, and then shortly thereafter, we're going to do a 30-minute. Some of you might have heard it called like a come as you'll be party. I call it a future you party. This is where we all show up on a Zoom call. We agree that we're going to pretend that we're at our idea of success 5 years down the road, and we're going to have conversations with each other about what's happened, kind of like a reunion. Hey, so the last 5 years I've done X, Y, and Z. I've got my book out. I'm, made the $1 million in sales mark. and it's really cool. It seems really hokey at first, but if you allow yourself to play full out, it is so powerful for our brains, because our brains start going, how do I make this happen, right? I now see that. I now feel that. I have that feeling, that sensation of being at that idea of success. So now, guess what? Your subconscious goes to work and things start falling into place, and you get there. So that's going to be an extra bonus that we're adding in there for the VIPs this time around. So check that out. Real quick, what else we got here? September 11th, a Small Business Skills Summit. It's going to be bringing 30 experts over 30 days. So if you'll go to osg.link/skills summit, you can check it out. I will be one of the presenters there, and my session's called Conquer Fear and Thrive. And then September 15th, I'll be heading to Charlotte, North Carolina for the Graphics Pro Expo. And that September 15th is the day before the Graphics Pro Expo starts. So that evening, I will be emceeing the Start Here Academy. Actually going to be getting together with the folks over there, including the influencers, next week to start hammering out more of the details. But I am really excited about this opportunity to kind of have an opportunity to talk with people about the startup mentality. So even if you're not a startup, I think this is going to be a very worthwhile endeavor to be able to kind of have that startup mentality and grow and build off of that. So you can check that out at osg.link/SHA. And last but not least here, three things. Gosh, I didn't realize all these things are on the calendar.
Last but not least.
Last but not least, Sublimation Summit in Peachtree City, Georgia, September 23rd. I'll be at that event. It's actually September 23rd and 24th, but I have to scoot out that night because I will be driving to Myrtle Beach, North Carolina from there to be there the next day on September 24th, and I'll be teaching 3 classes there at Everything Embroidery Market. And then rounding out the year, at least for me in the travels, as far as I can tell here, Printing United in Las Vegas, Nevada, October 19th through the 21st. And lots of good stuff happening over there at Printing United. So can't wait to see everybody out there in Las Vegas. So that's what's happening for me. Terry, headliner time. You're up.
All right. Okay. My next complete screen printing business course in Chicago with Atlas Screen Supply is sold out on August 27th and 28th, but you can come to the next class I have, which is at Equipment Zone in Franklin Lakes, New Jersey, right outside of New York City, September 10th and 11th. And that same class will be at Workhorse Products in Phoenix on September 25th and 26th. That class is also filling up very quickly. If you're interested in coming to Phoenix, perfect time of the year to come. September 30th at Impressions Expo Fort Worth, I'll be in the Erich Campbell wing giving my presentation of how to make a living as a full-time garment decorator. And then on October 2nd there in Fort Worth, training and motivating the best production staff in town. And all my events are on my website at terrycombs.com under tour dates.
There you go. All
He's
right.
got the best titles, I gotta say. Terry does great titles for his classes. I'm like,
he definitely
much better than what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I just alliterate everything, but Terry
love it. All right. So Kim Johnson says this has been a great show, and Ramona part 3, chanting part 3. So thank you. Sorry, Eric. All right. Well, guys, we have to go because we've got the half coming up in less than 3 minutes here. So we have come to the close of another throughout. Eric, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for being our guest today. Thanks for bringing this topic up and giving us 3 show content ideas out of this. So great job, sir. Thank you very much.
And people like those shows.
I think so. Thanks,
Yeah.
Eric, also for all the production work you do, pushing all those buttons and giving us all those titles and all those things to make this show better.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. All right. Well, next week we've got decorator Alan, and I'm going to have to work on his name, so I think it's Gaddis, but we'll get it right when he comes on. He's going to join us to talk about his 40 years in the industry and everything that entails. So we've had an opportunity to have some kind of shop talk, kind of, and inspirational type stuff here. So Alan's going to be one of those. I can't wait to talk to Alan next week. So tune in, same time, 10 a.m. Central Time.
Absolutely. Until then, I'm Terry Combs. He's Erich Campbell. He's Aaron Montgomery.
And we are the 2 regular guys.
Here we go.
We're out.
Awesome.
Thank you for listening to Two Regular Guys. Check out our website at tworegularguys.com. That's the number 2, regularguys.com. You can also interact with us over at our Facebook page, facebook.com/tworegularguys, or send us a tweet, twitter.com/tworegularguys. And we have a YouTube page. You can find all that from our website, tworegularguys.com. Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to spending some time with you again next week.